Today's guest is Mary Schenker. She's the marketing director at Elite Roofing Supply. So, Mary, thank you for coming on the show.
Well, thank you for having me. My pleasure.
Yeah, so you have a great marketing background. So I love the topic of marketing. So we're gonna have fun here.
Excellent. I'm excited about it. Yeah.
Now, was marketing a natural choice for you? I noticed that you kind of came out with a bachelor's degree in business and corporate communication.
Well, back in the day, marketing, when I went to school, there was kind of two different paths you went. You either went the business school, which had accounting and math, and it was kind of the more analytical track, or you went more of the creative route, and it was in the communication school, which is in letters, arts, and sciences. And so that was more of the route I went. It was marketing, but it was really more of an emphasis on corporate communications and public speaking and things like that. And in those classes, it's funny because I tended to spend more of my time on my signage and the creative elements that I had to do to back up my speech than the actual speech itself. So I started to kind of think about that and talk to my advisor, and it kind of leaned me more towards the advertising side. So I got to take a few classes in college on it, but was always, that person who is like, everybody in the room, be quiet. I got to watch the commercials. I really like the advertising aspect of it. And so that's, that's what I studied, and that's the path I took for marketing.
Yeah, I do remember that splitting the business side of it and the creative side of it. It's changed a bit, but I think I totally remember that. Now, I see something on your profile. I think this is one of your first gigs out of university. And I don't want to assume anything, but I'm going to ask you. Your title that you have at that role is production, account, hag, etc. Can you explain what that is?
Sure. Well, when I got out of school, you're pretty much willing to do anything anybody will have you do. This is back in the 80s. And so I landed a job working for one of the big ad agencies in Los Angeles. And I was the creative coordinator, but I kind of throw the word hag on there because I was willing to do anything that anybody asked me to because I just wanted to learn. And so I was in the perfect spot to, be the girl Friday for all of the art directors and the copywriters and the print production managers. And then if the suits, the account people needed help with something, I was always right there to lend a hand because I just was so fascinated by the business. So it was kind of like, I refer to the role as like air traffic control. You are in the middle of everything and assisting all the different departments. And it was just a really great learning experience. And thank God for Facebook. I'm still friends with some of the people that I worked with at Gray Advertising, many, many years ago. So it was fun. And I bounced from Gray, very large company, worldwide, learned a ton. And then I went to a small creative boutique in Santa Monica where literally everybody wore every hat. And that's where I really learned a lot and had just a ton of fun. Really progressive thinkers with the ad campaigns they came up with, and the creative won a ton of awards, and very fast paced, and it was a ton of fun. It was really cool.
Wonderful. I know that, being, coming out of the marketing space or being very interested in it, looking at, ice cubes and subliminal messages and all those weird case studies that, that they're in the past. And then also understanding that when a lot of people going into the marketing world, especially at the big agencies, seeing a disconnect between, wanting to do the pitches for the clients and being close to the creative aspect, and actually the distance that someone would have to travel career-wise to get to that position, and that massive gap, especially at a larger agency. Was that your experience?
Well, yeah, and the other thing is some of the accounts, you have a client who might be a little stiffer, as I refer to, in what they need, and they really want ROI on it. But you have to come up with a deliverable that's going to give them what they want, but is going to be creative and stand out in that space. And I remember working on a savings and loan account, and it was really different. This was back in the savings and loan crisis. Like I said, it's back in the 80s. And making banking and loans and CDs and things like that sexy and fun and appealing is not easy. So it was a stretch. It was definitely interesting. And then to balance that with, you're trying to always get more clients, so you want your work to stand out and you want people to know the agency that you work for, and you want your customers to be happy. It's a juggle. But I found that I really loved working in a smaller environment where, the phone rings 3 times and everybody dives on it, and you're really involved in the whole process. Because for me, what I've learned over time, the thing that kind of gives me my adrenaline rush, similar to like salespeople when they get their purchase order, their blood boils and they get all excited. For me, it's taking that idea that somebody has and watching it turn into something tangible, and being involved in all of the pieces of the puzzle. I mean, I just love that. It's so cool to be a part of. And at the ad agencies that I worked at, I got to work with, some fantastic art directors and copywriters. And, this is back in the day when there weren't computers, when we used to send out for, our type and get sheets of type, and we had paste up artists. So it was, sending things over the fax machine, as opposed to now you design it on your computer and boom, the person can have it 2 seconds later. So the technology changes and whatnot. It was cool. I mean, my first 2 jobs out of college, I was really lucky. I learned a lot, and have stayed friends with some of the people at both of them, and they're still in the business. And I get a kick out of seeing the stuff that they create. I mean, it's fun to be able to create great stuff that makes your client happy and gives them the ROI that they're looking for.
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. I've always remember when people would tell me about something that they saw cool on TV, or a product they have, not knowing that you were involved, or we were involved in that and getting a rush out of it coming full circle. I,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's cool. It's definitely cool. And then when I moved to Maine, I sort of fell into this niche, who knew, of marketing polyiso insulation. And, what is polyiso insulation? I'm embarrassed to say I can spell it, polyisocyanurate insulation, but I landed with my knowledge of how ad agencies run into working for a manufacturer, and kind of created my own little um, in-house ad agency, if you will. It was me and some other people, helpers in the department, taking on tasks. And we worked with a team of freelancers, and we kind of mimicked a little bit of how the ad agencies would create things, the creative brief and stuff like that. And, it's funny to say that I've marketed polyiso insulation for, well, until now, like 27 years. I mean, that's crazy.
Now, coming into that role, you have a ton of new ideas. Were these ideas readily accepted, or did you have to work the process a bit?
Well, I was lucky because our VP sales and marketing was somebody who really connected to marketing, and she had a lot of ideas as well. And sort of her philosophy was, you know, the building products industry, a lot of the products that people sell are commodity, and a lot of companies sell the same exact products, and a lot of manufacturers make the same thing. They just have a different name on it. The chemicals might be slightly different, but it's really pretty much the same product. So the way you have to set yourself apart is with your branding, the personality of the brand, and the services, and the way you treat your employees and your customers. And so she got that messaging. And so she was always pushing me to push myself to come up with something more creative. Because in the roofing industry, I mean, how often do you look at magazines and every picture you see is the top of a roof? And, it's all the same stuff. So we always tried to step apart and be different so that we were noticed. And I don't know, in the time I was there, I mean, we did very few ads with pictures of roofs. It was really more about the personality of the company, the services that we offer, and the way we treat our customers and things like that. So I was lucky with my first job, and then she started her own company for my second job, that she really got it. And I think it's really important when you're in marketing that if you're working with somebody who understands the power of marketing and the power of really good creative, the sky's the limit to what you can do. So I was lucky. It was a great experience.
Yeah. Did you say your sales and marketing director started a new company that you went with?
Yeah, she was the VP sales and marketing for NRG Barriers, which was a polyiso manufacturer. The headquarters was in Saco, Maine, and then it moved to Portland, Maine. Gosh, it was so many years ago. I think we had 7 or 8, maybe 6 or 7 manufacturing facilities. And then the owner of that company passed away and the company was sold. And then a few years later, she started her own company, Hunter Panels. And so a bunch of the, as we call it, the old band members got back together, and that was a startup. And that was really cool because we started marketing before we even were making product. And again, it was that small entrepreneurial spirit. The phone rings the third time, everybody dives on the phone. There's not real boundaries of who does what. If you pick up the phone and somebody needs something, you just figure out how to get them either to the right person or how to get them the answer. So it was really fun. And I worked with that company for 23 years. So yeah, it was.
Wonderful.
And the other thing I like to tell people, I'm old. I've been in the industry now for 30 some odd years. I started when there was no computers. We were still using overhead projectors, which people nowadays probably are like, what in the world is that? And when we started Hunter Panels, that was the day of people were just starting to get in to websites. So here's a marketing director who, was trained old school, and now I'm having to try and keep myself up to speed with, SEO and digital marketing and, email blasts and landing pages, and all that stuff. So I've seen quite a lot of changes in my career.
Yeah. So from the early days that you described, where everyone's bouncing on the phone, and trying to answer it before the third ring or the third ring, and as it grows, I mean, what sort of changes have you noticed? Because you saw this from the ground up. What are the first things that happen once you move out of that phase from a marketing perspective?
Well, I think in the beginning, you're trying to set up some systems and some not really tight brand standards, but you're trying to establish like a look and feel for some of the things so that you're not inventing something custom all the time. We were lucky we had a really cool logo that we could do a lot of fun things with. So sort of the thing that carried through with everything we did, no matter what the holiday was or what the special occasion or event was, is we could manipulate our logo to work with that. So it's trying to do things like that. And then budgets come into play at the beginning. I call it like guerrilla warfare, where wherever your customers are, you want your logo to pop up, whether it's web, back in the day, trade magazines, emails, direct mail, all of those kind of old school methods. You do all of that and you're kind of laying the foundation for the futures so that then you can get more targeted. Um, the technology changes were challenging because you may know you need to do it, but as a corporate entity, you might not be ready to do it. So we were probably a little slower to adopt some things than we probably should have been. Um, but I don't know. That's a really good question, Kat. I hope I sort of maybe answered it.
Yeah, no, it's good. I think you mentioned, brand standards and kind of trying to be everywhere and then more targeted. So, I'm always interested in the transition. So as you're becoming more targeted, as you're thinking further ahead, I'm assuming when marketing organizations pop up, you're trying to figure things out. Where are the customers? So everything is kind of like shorter term. And then at what point did it become longer term? And how longer term do you think now in terms of planning ahead and fixed budgets versus open budgets and flexibility to capitalize on short term opportunities? How do you think through all that?
Well, I'm new at the position that I'm at now, and I have my experiences working for a manufacturer, and we went from having open budgets to do what we needed to do to, I mean, times have changed, and you have to be accountable, and there's budget constraints, and then you have to get really picky on where you're going to spend your money and to what customer. And I think in the building products industry, there's a couple of different ways, at least for us. You can look at customers. You can look at on the specification side, the architects, the engineers, and the specifiers. You can look at the contractor side, the people who are actually installing the product. And then you can look at distribution, the people that are actually buying it. So with the limited budget, you have to figure out and work with your sales managers to figure out, which of those three buckets you want to put your spend in. So now I'm working, that was my experience working for a manufacturer. I'm now at a new job. I work for Elite Roofing Supply, and they're a distributor. And so now I'm working for the people on the manufacturing side that I used to always sell to. So now I'm a customer of the manufacturer. And boy, doesn't that teach you a lot. I think anybody who's in manufacturing, in marketing, should spend a few weeks in distribution marketing, because really, it's needs to be the synergy of the two of you, because we're buying your product, but I need to promote it to my roofing contractors. And so, gosh, I've learned a lot in the 2 months that I've been here that I wish I knew for the 27 or so years that I was marketing for the manufacturer. Um, the great thing about Elite is very young company. We're 8 years old, growing by leaps and bounds. And again, I find myself in that situation where I'm in an entrepreneurial company. It's not quite third ring. Everybody jumps on the phone. We're a little more established than that, but they haven't had a director of marketing before. So I get to set up sort of, the branding standards, some boundaries on what we're going to do, what things are going to look like. And our customers, it's really simple for being in distribution. It's the roofing contractor. So I'm going to be, talking to residential and commercial roofing contractors and find out, what makes them tick and what makes them pick one distributor over the other. So it's exciting because I'm in a new realm. I've got all this background from the manufacturing side, but now I'm truly right there to the customer. Whereas in manufacturing, it was always a step away because your customer was the distributor, but the contractor would ask the distributor for your brand. So it's kind of confusing.
Yeah, that's good. A couple questions come to mind.
Sure.
That yeah, we're fans of Elite. We work with you guys, so we know your culture and your entrepreneurness is great. But you said, "I wish I knew this as a manufacturer." 27 years. What are the things you picked up? What are the key things that you would have said to yourself or passed on?
Um, you know, Branding, sitting in a distribution. Our headquarters, we're really lucky because our headquarters is also a working branch. So walking out and watching trucks get filled and seeing that process and looking in the yard and seeing, if there's branding opportunities for, a banner to talk about the features and benefits of your product, or when customers come in for customer pickup, the CPU, and they're sitting waiting for their truck to be um, loaded, is there opportunities to have a video playing or have some kind of a handout or have somebody talking to that person about, the products. There's racks of literature, but there's also other opportunities. I think the thing that I learned is there's a lot of opportunity for point of purchase. Um, in a distributor, you're competing for counter space, but it's about being unique and different in how you do that. If you can't get the counter space because there's not a lot at a distributor, there's wall spaces on buildings, there's fencing, there's all kinds of opportunities to keep your brand out there front and center. And then the other thing, I mean, you have limitations in manufacturing on how you can package things. But when you look at a 5 acre yard and you see stacks of product and you can't read the logo from a distance, to me, those products are like billboards. You should be able to see that logo really big and prominently. Um, just things like that, and then just watching the cycle of how a truck comes in, gets loaded and leaves. I always like to think, what can we do to make it easier for the customer? Is there something in the way we package or how our product is loaded? Is there something that we, as a manufacturer could have done to make it easier? And as a distributor now, I notice those things.
Mm, that
So
makes sense. I mean, I guess you have a lot of consumer product marketing experience, eye tracking, shelf talkers. It sounds like that sort of stuff in terms of, really maximizing the opportunities to get those impressions.
yeah, and then it's training the counter help, because if a contractor is calling or a contractor comes in and he says, I need, this particular product, that counter guy is going to lean them towards the product or the person that he likes the best, whoever he wants to get the sale. Because so much of the products are so similar. And I think the one thing that a lot of people forget is people buy from people, and it's a very relationship driven business. So, whatever you can do for the counter person to have them have a few extra, little tidbits of information on it might be that your product's not better, but it might be the service level that this manufacturer can offer as opposed to this one that makes the experience better for the contractor and the distributor. I don't know, but I'm one of those people, my brain doesn't shut off often, and I constantly am thinking of ideas because I ask a lot of questions and I'm observant. And I've been here just barely 3 months, and I've learned a ton, and it's just interesting to see sort of the other side. We used to market to distributors, and now I'm a distributor, and I'm seeing all these opportunities. I would love to call my old company and go, "You guys should do this. You should do this. You should do this," but that probably wouldn't go over very well.
So I think, like, what are I mean, obviously going from a manufacturer to a distributor, you're getting the distributor's insight, but now as a being in a distributor organization, understanding how manufacturers work, what have you taken in to a distribution house in terms of the opposite way? Because you told me that you learned a lot being a distributor now, but what are the things you can pull into your distribution role?
Oh gosh, that's a really good question. Um, just some of the best practice things. And again, I've been here 3 months, so I'm not like, I mean, my toes are in. I'm not 100% submerged so far, but some of the things that I've done is event planning and meeting planning. I've used some of the ideas and things just in formatting and technology from the past I've brought here. Because again, I'm lucky because I'm the first person in this role, so I get to kind of make it my own. Um, as far as like sales and things like that, I think the only thing really that I've been able to bring so far is just a different perspective. So if we're talking about an issue or we're trying to solve a problem or something, some of the questions that I ask are probably based on manufacturing knowledge that I have, and it might, even though it might be not 100% related to the distribution side, it might trigger a question or an answer from somebody. So, I think as the different um, tasks I'll be assigned come up, I'll be able to lean back on the experience that I have through manufacturing and bring some of that forward. But I think probably the most right now is just somebody with a fresh set of eyes and a clear brain coming in who doesn't have the background and asking questions. Why do you do this? Why don't you do it this way? And then just getting people to maybe think about things a little bit differently.
Yeah, for
That's
sure.
probably
Now, with all the marketing background you have, you're exposed to other companies doing marketing as well. What is the top mistake, or it could be like a pet peeve that you have when you watch other companies execute on marketing, and you say that? What is that thing that
Oh,
stands out?
there's a couple. And this one is kind of funny because I am in marketing. I hate when you go on a website and look at something. I don't even know what it's called. I'm sure there's some technical name for it. And then that product follows you for like the rest of your life. Like you can't, you like they use cookies or whatever and like it follows you. That annoys me. Annoying marketing annoys me. I think people, um, some companies over communicate, and I'm a firm believer of you need to have good content, relevant content, and do your best to get it to the right person. And if it means you're sending out correspondence once a quarter or once every other month, that's fine. But you shouldn't set a cadence of, once a week or something like that and just basically sending stuff for the sake of sending it, because everybody suffers from marketing overload. And when you get 100 150 messages in your inbox, people aren't reading them. So I would say, I don't want to say over communicating because I don't think that's possible, but I think it's making sure that what you're communicating is relevant, on task, and not so much about what you need to communicate, but does it affect the other person? Kind of looking at it more full circle. Because I can't tell you how often I hit that unsubscribe button. It makes me nuts. And then they keep coming back. It's like, how can I get rid of that? You know, um, that's probably my biggest pet peeve. And at my old company and even at Elite, we're not going to be that company who sends stuff out just for the sake of sending it out. You need to have, like I said, relevant content, getting to the right people, and being purposeful for them. So,
Yeah. So,
what about you? What's annoying for you?
well, I think I like strategy. So what drives me nuts is a lot of things that happen in marketing are very tactical related, based on new shiny things that appear. And I think I always like to look at things very strategically, and if they have a long term impact. I know sometimes marketing you can capitalize on some sort of short term opportunity by coming in early, getting in while the ad rates are low, or that's fine. But I think there's a lot of short term thinking. The more that I think about marketing, or the longer I spent in it, I realized that the best campaigns are almost invisible for the first 2 or 3 years,
Right.
and it's year 4 or 5. And so for me, when I think about that, well, first of all, how do you communicate to your organization that is indeed occurring? And how do you have the courage and the know-how to get to a point where you can run a campaign that long and to see a real impact? That's what always crossed my mind, but I always find the best campaigns seem to come out of nowhere, but they're not. They've just spent a long time setting the groundwork and the foundation to do that. So that's what I've noticed. Like the best companies are always remarkably consistent over a long period of time, to a point where the marketing people, everyone is bored of the campaign, and but the reality is it's just getting through to the customer, and I think that's
Right.
just a hard lesson to
Right.
remember.
Right. No, that's good. I'm trying to think of like if I ever went into a campaign knowing it would be a long-term campaign, and the answer to that would probably be no. Because usually it's, like you said, it's a short-term strategy. It's like for a year, we're going to market these for product features for particular applications or something. And then the next year, the strategies change. So you come up with, it's other products or other services or something. I think some of them may have ended up being long term, but didn't plan to be long term when they started. And then it's a matter of how do you refresh it and, not say the same message for every, just having it look a little bit different, maybe talk about a different feature or something. But I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense. And I think that the strategy is everything. And even with like my pet peeve with the email marketing, there has to be a purpose and there has to be an end goal. And you can't, unless it's an educational piece where you just want somebody to read it and then do nothing, there has to be some type of goal in mind, some type of call to action. Do you want them to call or download or, place an order or get a coupon or something? There has to be a reason that you're sending it out. When you're sending something out and there's no call to action, I mean, the only thing I can think of really that um, fits the bill of having no call to action is price increase letters, which in the industry right now seems to be what we're all sending all the time. Unfortunately, it's like not another one. But when we're doing true marketing, I don't call that marketing. That's housekeeping. You got to have that call to action because you should be able to measure and know if your campaign's working.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And, you got me excited about marketing. So I was sitting on a call with the CMO of Pepsi. This very
Oh,
smart.
lucky you! That must
Yeah,
have been fun.
yeah, it was really good. It was a small group. We were listening to him talking about stuff, and one of the questions was what worries a big company like Pepsi. And his answer really got to the core of what I understand to be marketing. And one of the things he said is, he says, I'm terrified of the company that's regional, that's got a specific insight into the client that we do not have and that we're growing out. And they're building a company around that. So they are constantly terrified of these small companies that are growing quickly and always trying to figure out what key insight, what do they know about the customer that we do not know, because that is always shifting. So that was
Right,
really good to listen to that, because I think these campaigns that are multi-year are based on that. What's that key insight
right,
that we have that
right.
they don't? And just reminded me that's the core of any campaign, is that knowing the customer in that way. So
Well, and it's interesting because I think from their standpoint, there's such brand loyalty. It's like either you're a Coke or you're a Pepsi person. And then if you look at our industry, you hope that there's brand loyalty, but there's also, the name of the game on price and availability. And there's so many factors that make it complicated. Um, but you're knowing your customer and knowing what helps them to make their decisions is what you need to capitalize on.
yeah,
Yeah,
that
it's
makes a
interesting to know Pepsi's afraid.
me too. It just gives all of us hope, right? So
Right, right, exactly, exactly. Interesting.
so
Cool.
I mean, I asked you a lot of things about marketing and your background. Is there any question that I should have asked you, but I missed out?
Oh gosh. Um, well, I'll throw a couple things out there. I've been in the industry, I'm 57, so I've been in the industry for a few hundred years. And I would say my advice to other people in marketing, like the young whippersnappers coming up, um, ask a lot of questions. I'm one of those people where I can't come up with an ad or whatever the tangible marketing item is unless I understand it. And so I can be annoying sometimes just trying to like understand the sequence or what the application is or what the point of difference is or what do we have that nobody else has or trying to get to that little nugget and I keep digging and digging and digging. And my advice to people is dig. Even with commodities, there's a point of difference. It may look, feel, smell, whatever the same, but there's something that makes either your company, maybe it's the way you package it or ship it, a little bit different. And finding that nugget gives you, your twist, your marketing difference for that particular product. The other thing, being in the industry 1,000 years that I wish I had done, probably, oh gosh, was really embrace technology more. My kids laugh at me like they think I can barely turn my phone on. I'm fine with a phone, but I wished I would have taken some classes on InDesign and some stuff like that. Um, I just think I would have understood better some of the things and the challenges that I was pushing my art directors and whatnot to do. I would have understood the capabilities. I was lucky in my positions that I was sort of a yin and a yang with an art director. We collaborated a lot to come up with stuff, and I had my own creative abilities, but I was like cheating and designing stuff through ways that I knew how to design, which was not in design or anything like that. But I think having a better understanding of the intricacies of InDesign and those things would have been better. I mean, I learned again, I'm old, Quark Express. Like people probably have never even heard of that. That's like so old school. I mean, and my Apple computer was like this big and weighed like 900 pounds. So the world has changed. So my advice to marketing people out there: ask a lot of questions, dig for that nugget, and embrace technology. Um, that's probably it. It's not really a question, but it's just
It's
sort
a
of my
very
advice.
good answer. It's the same thing when someone says someone is good at marketing, I'm always thinking, if I don't tell them directly, is nobody is good at marketing. Everyone is good at parts of marketing.
Right.
Marketing is too expansive for anyone to be good at. And that's what
Right.
makes it interesting. And I think that's why you've stuck with it all these years. And still, I can hear the enthusiasm in your voice as you sort of embark on this next adventure.
Well, it's fun. And I never knew I would end up in the building products industry. I mean, who knew? And when I tell people that, they're like, oh, wow, you do marketing for roofing distribution? I'm like, think about it. People have to buy products somewhere. Not everybody goes to the big boxes to buy stuff. And, it's a small but large market. I mean, the people are great people. They work very hard. They have a lot of fun, and I'm thrilled to be with Elite and to sort of have this last chapter of my working career be on the distribution side. It's going to be a ton of fun.
All right.
And
Well,
the other advice: you're never too old to learn. You know.
yeah, yeah, I agree at 100%. Well, thank you for sharing your knowledge. I
You're so
certainly
welcome.
got some nuggets as well, so I appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. It was a lot of fun.